Order. The Chair has received a request for an emergency debate from the Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley, and I'll be pleased to hear his submissions on that point now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to this motion. This will be of interest to all members and, in fact, all Canadians. I wrote to you earlier today to seek leave for an emergency debate on the topic of safety and regulation of the offshore oil and gas drilling industry in Canada. The specifics and need for the emergency debate, Mr. Speaker, is clear. Canadians and the rest of the world have seen the horrors, the Prime Minister referred to it today, of the environmental disaster that is happening in the Gulf of Mexico right now. Almost 1 million litres of oil are spewing up from the seabed floor onto the coasts of New Orleans and other places across the coast. The Deepwater Horizon explosion is relevant to the Canadian context and relevant for an emergency because the very same companies involved with that project are seeking an exemption. They are probing and lobbying the government right now to seek the safety exemptions that are not being applied right now in the Gulf. So, in fact, lessening the safety rules. The emergency debate is prevalent and important at this time because the government has not yet come forward in the issuing of leases for offshore, both to the west coast and particularly the Beaufort Sea in the north. And the ability of Canadians to know their government has got rules in place that are stronger, in fact, than the ones that led to the disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. We need to hear from the government of the day. Opposition members need to be able to make the petition in case to understand that no licenses will be issued right now. The National Energy Board is hearing these petitions as we speak, Mr. Speaker, and any day will rule on these exemptions for British Petroleum and other companies. It seems incumbent upon us as a House of Commons to deal with this now, before the licenses are issued, before the drilling begins, because once begun, once the permits are out, there is no way to pull back disasters like the ones we're seeing in the Gulf. And our Arctic region, the west coast of British Columbia, simply could not survive the devastating effects of a major spill like the one we're seeing from the Deepwater Horizon. Mr. Speaker, this is all about same-season relief wells. This is about an exemption being sought on that exact issue by British Petroleum and others. This House must engage with this issue forthwith, and I humbly seek and request an emergency debate for this evening.
I thank the Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley for submissions on this point. I've considered that and, of course, the letter that he forwarded to me this morning on this subject. While I've no doubt the situation in the Gulf of Mexico would constitute an emergency if it had happened in the Hudson's Bay, for example, it hasn't happened in Canada at the moment, and accordingly I'm not inclined to grant the request the Honourable Members made for an emergency debate at this time. The argument about possible changes in regulations is, of course, one that can be debated in the House, and I point out to Honourable Members that we do have a supply day almost weekly these days, so there is opportunity for debates on this kind of subject to take place in one of those days, and accordingly I'm going to turn down his request at this time. Orders of the day. Ordre du jour.